New York Times states that cheerleading is the fastest growing girls' sport in America, even though half of Americans don't believe that it should be a sport. The problem with this is that most Americans don't distinguish between the sideline cheerleaders and the competitive cheerleaders. The main goal of the sideline cheerleaders is to cheer on the school teams and entertain the crowd, which should not be a sport. The competitive cheerleaders, on the other hand, do much more dangerous stunts and tumbling than the sideline cheerleaders, and they actually compete against other teams. This is the type of cheer that should be a sport. Sideline cheerleaders do only a small fraction of what they actually do in the competitions. Basketball and football games are somewhat of a practice for them to practice the stunts and tumbling that they will do for their competition. Competitions are just a chance to show off how good the cheerleaders really are and what they are capable of doing outside of the sideline cheer. Sideline cheerleaders can only do so much since, one, they don't have enough room. They're either on the sidelines of the football field or the sidelines of the basketball court, so they don't have enough room to do their stunts and tumbling. And two, they're either on grass or the hardwood floor, which limits the stunts and tumbling that they can do. And three, the main goal is to entertain the crowd and to not show off their skills. Most people only see this side of cheerleading and not the competitive side, which is why they believe that it shouldn't be a sport. Most people don't even know the definition of a sport, though, which there isn't really an official definition of an official sport, but the Women's Sports Foundation has narrowed the field down of what is considered a sport to these elements that are commonly agreed upon to define a sport. The first element is that it must be a physical activity which involves propelling a mass through space or overcoming the resistance of mass. This would be stunting. 3 or 4 bases throw the flyer in the air, which is propelling a mass through space, and then catch her. Actual stunting, where bases hold the flyer, is the act of resisting mass. The second element is contesting or competing against other teams or with an opponent. This in cheerleading is called the competitions. Competitions are where thousands of cheerleaders go and compete against other teams. Just like all other sports, a winner is declared and they give trophies, awards, and medals to the top placed teams. The third element is that it must be governed by rules that explicitly define time, space, and the purpose of contests and conditions under which a winner is declared. At competitions, all teams have time limits. The time limits are different whether you're competing with NCA or UCA, but most of these time limits are around 3 minutes. The mat size is the same for all competitions. If a cheerleader steps off the mat, the team is automatically disqualified or gets a few points deducted. The score sheets are the things that determine the winner. The judges watch the whole routine and write down the deducted points and the level of difficulty that the team performed, and they find out who the winner is. The fourth and last element is the acknowledgement that the primary purpose of competition is a comparison of relative skills of participants. They show some of the biggest competitions on ESPN, which is acknowledging that cheer is a big thing. After looking at these elements and seeing that cheer meets all of these requirements, it pretty much sums up the fact that cheer should be a sport, since it meets all of these requirements. Now let's talk a little bit about the safety hazards of cheer. Cheer can be one of the most dangerous sports if not taken seriously. There are many different ways to get hurt. Cheerleading has caused some of the worst injuries, including life-threatening ones. Cheer injuries have more than doubled since 1990, states the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. In 2007, cheer accounted for about 74,000 serious reported injuries nationwide. Sprains and strains, just like most other sports, are the most common types of injuries, but occasionally the cheerleaders will get broken bones and concussions. Most of these injuries happen during the pyramid and the basket tosses. The flyer gets thrown about 20 feet into the air, and if she gets caught wrong or not caught at all, she can get seriously hurt. The basket toss and the pyramid are the two most dangerous skills in cheer. The cheerleaders also practice in the gym, which is a hardwood floor. The schools don't pay for the cheerleaders to get mats, so that's the only place they have to practice. And practicing on the gym floor is very dangerous. If a flyer fell on a mat, she would have less risk of getting seriously injured than to fall on the gym floor. If schools paid for mats, there would be less injuries. During competition, the only spotters are the 4 spotters that the competition has provided, so other than that, it is a 3 bases job to catch the flyer if she falls. Tumbling is also very dangerous. It is very easy to land wrong even when doing the easiest of skills. Most injuries are to the neck, knees, and ankles from landing the tumbling pass. The National Center for Catastrophic Sports Injury Research, which tracks sports safety nationwide, reported that cheer accounted for 2/3 of all catastrophic injuries among female high school and college athletes. This group has also documented 93 incidents resulting in death, head injury, and/or permanent disability between 1982 and 2007. It is a small number, but it translates to a rate of 2.68 catastrophic injuries for every 100,000 female high school cheerleaders, which exceeds the rate of many other high school sports. These statistics show that cheer is one of the most dangerous sports. And now let's go on to the physical part. Cheerleading is just as physical as, if not more, than most other sports. They perform a 3-minute routine, doing absolutely nothing but lifting people, flipping themselves over, and running around the mat from formation to formation. Some of these routines, mostly the high school routines, also have a cheer in it. So the cheerleaders start at the beginning of the routine doing some stunts and tumbling, and then in the middle of the routine, they have to do a 45-second cheer while still stunting and tumbling. Doing this part of the routine, along with the rest of it, is very, very tiring, so the cheerleader has to be in shape. Running and talking is hard. Imagine stunting and tumbling while yelling. It is not easy. Before cheerleaders choreograph their routine, most practices are strictly conditioning. If a person isn't in good shape, it can be very dangerous. If a person is really tired and getting ready to throw a person into the air, but they're too tired to catch them, the flyer has a good chance of getting seriously hurt. And the same goes with tumbling. If a person is too tired to throw their tumbling pass or flip themselves all the way over, they have a good chance of landing on their necks wrong or hurting some other part of their bodies. Cheerleaders basically do physical activity for a good 3 minutes before they can stop. Cheerleading doesn't only have to deal with physical ability, it is a mental sport as well. The cheerleader has to be in the right mindset before they can do a lot of these skills. If anybody is not focused on what they're doing, they can hurt themselves or other people around them. Cheerleaders have to be pretty strong too because the bases lift a flyer that is their size or more above their heads. The coaches usually have the bases lift weights to get stronger, just like most other sports. So as you can see, cheer is not just a physical sport, it is a mental sport as well. And if the cheerleader is not either of these, it can be very dangerous. Another reason why cheer is a sport is because a lot of cheerleading is gymnastics. And gymnastics is an Olympic sport, and a very popular one at that. Gymnasts do floor routines, which is basically just a routine full of tumbling. Floor routines consist of very dangerous skills. Gymnasts do a little bit different tumbling than the cheerleaders do. The gymnast tumbling is more clean and graceful, but aside from that, a part of cheer routines is strictly tumbling, which is also a big part of gymnastics, which is considered a sport. Dancing is also in the Olympics. The last part of every cheer routine is just strictly dancing. So there are 2 major parts of a routine that are Olympic sports. So it doesn't make sense to me why cheerleading, competitive cheerleading, wouldn't be considered a sport. So as you can see, cheer is a lot more than pom-poms, looks, and cheering on the school teams. They put a lot more effort into the competitive side of cheer, which is what most people don't see. Football and basketball games are just practices. In competitions, they actually get to show how good they are. The Women's Sports Foundation defines a sport by having some requirements that the activity has to have, and cheer meets all of these requirements, making it a sport, according to the Women's Sports Foundation. Cheerleaders compete against other squads, get judged, and meet all the requirements of a sport, so why would it not be a sport? Cheer, just like all other sports, is both physical and mental. It can be very dangerous if the athlete is not physically or mentally prepared. As stated earlier, cheerleading can be very dangerous. Throwing a girl into the air has great risks, such as her falling from a stunt and hurting herself, or not landing her tumbling pass. A lot of tumbling results in torn ACLs or other torn ligaments and muscles. Most stunting injuries result in broken noses, broken arms, and concussions. Cheer has evolved over the past 20 years from being an activity where members were selected based on popularity to one that now claims some of the most talented athletes in the schools. Cheer isn't just jumping and waving pom-poms, it has become as athletic and as potentially dangerous as a sport, the nation's leading group of pediatricians say. So instead of people just using their opinions to judge whether cheer should be a sport, they should just look at the facts.